Hello and welcome back. I'm Dr. Lori Williams. Today I want to talk to you about overgiving. So essentially, I hear this all the time. People come to me and they are exhausted. They're burnt out. Overgiving is actually probably the most likely cause of feeling burnt out because what we say, like what happens when we are overgiving is we think that we're just being nice, that we're being supportive, that we're being, like just avoiding conflict. We're just a good person. That's just who we are. But the truth of it is that if you are overgiving for the wrong reasons, and if you're constantly overgiving without taking care of yourself, that's actually a trauma response. I'm not saying that you're not a nice person. You can be a nice person, but there's a difference between being nice and being kind. I tell my clients all the time, you want to strive for being a kind person because a kind person actually is kind to themselves first, and then that kindness comes like overflows into their outwardly relationships. So being a nice person is typically connected to the trauma response. It's usually connected to the need to be included, to be accepted, to be loved, to be valued, all of those kinds of things. And essentially what you're doing is you are looking for that love, that acceptance, that validation from other people because you're not giving it to yourself. And that is truly um, the big issue that's going on within yourself is the things that you're not giving to yourself and you're expecting it from someone else outside of you. Now, unfortunately, I mean, there's going to be people in your life that have um, used you to, used your niceness, used this kindness, allowed you to overgive yourself in, maybe in your time, in your energy, in your support, whatever that is. And they're going to be very upset when that stops. But it really isn't about them. It comes down to the point of it that the reason that person is in your life is to show you where you're not free, which to show you where you're holding yourself back, and where you're still acting from a place of trauma rather than a place of freedom. So essentially what you're doing when you're overgiving is you're trying to avoid conflict. You're managing you're managing your outside, everything outside of you so that you don't have to actually look at what's going on inside of you. So much of what we do so much of what we do that we call our personality, our identity, it's just who I am, is actually to avoid looking at what's truly going on inside of us. And once you have that realization that, it's never about anybody else, you can sit there and blame, your brother, your mother, your father, your cousin twice removed. It doesn't matter. It literally has nothing to do with them. It's 100% to do with you. Always. So essentially, when you are an overgiver, when you are overextending yourself, when you're feeling like you're burnt out, um, you have learned that being an easy person to deal with was reducing friction in your life. It wasn't causing conflict. That being needed secured some kind of connection. Maybe, you're the kind of person that just can't be alone or struggles with loneliness. And I mean, even that is definitely a sign that it's what needs to be looked at as an inside job. A lot of people who are overgivers, their claim to fame, so to speak, is that I'm low maintenance. Well, low maintenance is going to make sure that your needs are not being met, that um, you may avoid rejection, but at the same time, you're rejecting yourself, which is essentially what's going on. So you've had to adapt to these experience through the experiences that you've gone through, and you've adapted in this way. This has all been part of your survival plan. But why you start getting burnt out, the burnout part of it is actually your body's recognition that you don't need to continue to live in that space. You don't need to continue to live in that space of fearing rejection. It's just like you've outgrown it. So the burnout comes when you're still trying to work through these old patterns. You're still showing up in these old ways that just really are not serving you anymore. Um, Essentially, it's like because you've had to become that person in order to feel safe at some point in your life, you're still just going through the motions of it without any kind of of interruption. And as soon as you start to interrupt those patterns, that's when you start to make those, those deep needed changes. So one thing I want you to be aware of is that overextending, overgiving, it's not just costing you your energy. It's not just costing you your, like, and when I say energy, I mean like mental, physical, emotional. It's not just causing you your energy, but it's costing you your identity. As long as you are attached to this old version of yourself, this old identity, nothing is going to change. You cannot just, hope that working through it is going to help. Like, this is like deep seated um, change in the nervous system. This is reprogramming of the nervous system, and this is like a complete destruction of the identity that is attached to this overgiving part of who you are. And there's going to be different facets of that. There's different levels of of who you had to be, of this identity. It's like, stripping away the layers, so to speak. But at the core of it, the identity that used to be the version of you that did all of these things in order to feel that you've given your overgiving in all the ways, in order to feel the love and the validation and the acceptance. When that version of you no longer exists, that's when you know that the identity has been dismantled. And essentially, nervous system healing is all about dismantling all these different identities. And the true and authentic version of who you are is underneath all of those things. You don't have to try to become something or someone. You don't have to try to be who you authentically are. It's underneath all of the conditioning. And overgiving is definitely a very common, a common way that a common identity that we hold on to, and thinking that it's good for us, when it usually takes burnout to realize that, maybe we're not doing something that's authentic to who we are. And it's only at that point that you can start to change it. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you back here next time.